You mentioned Justin Timberlake.
Yeah.
So we talking Tyrese,
Yeah.
TGT, Justin Timberlake. TGT being, three legendary artists, including Tyrese, and then you have Justin Timberlake, who's one of, our time's most incredible
One of the greatest pop artists that we got, man.
For sure. Coming from Tyrese, tell me how the difference between like working with someone like Tyrese then going to the Justin Timberlake, from an R&B crooner to a pop R&B artist.
Well, the main difference with like a TGT and a Justin Timberlake is more so like demographic and the size venues that we're playing, but like that soul element, like that's what JT loves to tap into. So as a singer, it's the same vibe. Like he want me to sing just like they want me to sing, and he gave us they both gave me opportunities on the road, like for solos and different stuff like that. But another big difference was the performance aspect in R&B with like heavy hitters like Tyrese, Genuine, and Tank. It's persona that sells everything. They can just stand there and sing because that's what the audience is expecting. Justin Timberlake comes from a different type of performance, so that's show business.
High level choreography.
Like literally, most choreography I've ever did in my life on a gig where I was hired as a singer. You know what I mean? And that made me, as an R&B artist though, like those extremes, and I've worked with everybody in between. Like I've toured with Kirk Franklin, with Jill Scott, with Nick Jonas, Kelly Rowland. Like, so there kept being parallels, and like, you know what I mean? Like the road that led me there was pretty consistent and consisted of different parts of all of those artists. And so it helped me as an R&B artist because I felt like working with somebody like JT helped me to put, even if I don't want to get on stage and fully dance, there's a different level of performance that goes into my live shows than if I had never been exposed to that, you know? So, it coming from, again, musical theater, dancing, singing, all of this stuff as a child, working with Justin was the first time that all of those worlds collided, where it was like, it counted that I did all of this. So, but I've literally learned something from every artist. Like with Kirk, you know what I mean? That's all about vocal consistency. Like Kirk's singing with Kirk, like that's.
What year were you with Kirk?
2016.
2016.
Yeah, I did 20 Years in One Night tour, and I actually finished Kirk's tour and went with Justin Timberlake.
Wow.
So it was like a transition like that. But working with Kirk, you know what I mean? That made sure I kept my chops up. Working with Jill Scott. Jill was like an artist. Yeah. So she taught me how to pay attention to detail. Like I would see Jill in rehearsals, and we could be singing the same song 50 million times. If a light changed or if the air is blowing a different direction, Jill was like, something is different. And it's making me feel different. Like, you know what I mean? And that made me not feel bad about my specifics as an artist, because it really does change
the atmosphere.
Yeah, and how you emote and perform this stuff. So it's I've literally learned from every artist I've worked with, and they've gotten me like here in this position.
What do you feel like is the most valuable lesson you've learned just from that standpoint? This is pre-solo artistry. So the most valuable lesson you learned during that time?
Tashina Arnold says it all the time, but it's nice to be important, but it's more important to be nice. I learned that, as a background singer, as someone who is shown on the stage, I got a chance to see how those who aren't were treated, but also how we wouldn't have the show that we have if it wasn't for the lighting designer and the sound engineer and the stage hands and everybody handling the production. And so that taught me, it was already there, but it kind of heightened my respect for everything that goes into me even being able to do what I do. Because if none of that was there and none of these people were there to make that possible, that's a lot of work that you would have to do yourself.
What, during that time, what would make you, I say what would make you, because I listen to your music and I can hear how phenomenal the music is. So this is like, you're a stellar musician, stellar singer and writer.
Thank you.
To go from background vocal to saying, look, I'm just going to step out and do the solo and finally do it. Like, what what happened? Like, what made you say, okay, I'm ready to do it. I'm ready to step out.
You know, my story is interesting because that's what most people do. They go if they're in the background space, and let me say, like, that's not an easy thing to do. I have tons of amazingly talented friends.
Yeah.
And that is a hard space to navigate. And a lot of times it's hard to navigate for some artists because of the backing you lose financially. It's so easy to you have consistent money if you're working for somebody else.
That's right.
When you got to do that by yourself, that's a risk everybody's not willing to take.
That's
you know what I mean? And so for myself, it was different because I actually started as an artist. I didn't start singing background. So when I was like a senior in high school, I had already started. I was on MySpace with songs. Like in LA, I would do shows. Like people knew my songs already, like my friends, my crowd of people, you know what I mean? So I started off doing shows, doing my own music from MySpace to SoundCloud. Then I got into like the open mic scene in LA with, a lot of the live musicians that I came up with. And a lot of them ended up being like MDs on different gigs. Tours, yeah, and nobody likes to hold auditions.
Of course.
So they will call you if they felt like you were a good fit. And so that's what got me into that space. So what happened was I never lost sight of what my initial vision was.
Yeah.
I know I'm not a background singer, but I also didn't feel belittled lending myself to other people's visions. I just understood never lose sight of what your vision is. You can do this, but don't push yours completely aside. So then I learned the art of balancing. And so I would be out on the road with these artists with my mic, still recording music. And like at one point when I was on tour with Justin Timberlake, I did the Men of the Woods tour. On our off days, I was on tour with Marsha Ambrosius as an opener.
Wow.
So I would use my money that I was making every week and fly to go do a, do a show with Marsha, because I was still trying to get myself out there. And so at that point, though, that's when I started to realize that, like, I was ready to put myself in a position to make the decision of, like, okay, I see what I have. I think I actually have something valuable and it's going to take me, there's no way I can give 150% that I need to my stuff and still do this.
Right.
So for a minute I did it and a lot of, you got to learn how to frame it. Like if I know, like I've learned I'm like a legit independent artist. So I would be on tour doing gigs, singing background. Nobody knew. I would never post it. If I post that I was in the city somewhere, never post me behind, in the back of the stage. Like, you know what I mean? You have to create
the persona of that.
And I look at it as another form of manifestation. This is what I would want my life to be. So I'm not gonna post as if it's what it is. And that's biblical. Like, speak those things for
as if they were.
Yeah. So I'm like, I was doing that, and I remember one of my last background gigs, I was singing background for Charlie Puth. And we did Ellen, and then we had just did this football like halftime show. Okay. And after that show, I was like, it's time. Yep. I felt it. I knew it. I felt the push, and it was literally one of the best decisions I made. Like, I thank God there's been like no lack in anything that I've done since that moment.
Oh, can we talk?